Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. I don't know how I'm going to label it this one or call it because it's just another question that it was asked. And I do have a Spanish channel which I had for many years. So these questions come from this particular question comes from that particular channel. So anyhow, the question says, "Hi Nick, I just watched the video question part 3. When you realize everything is the same." So don't look for this video in the English channel because it came from the Spanish channel. And the person continues, "And a realization came to me. Everything I see is thought. This realization is not new to me. The classical Buddha himself said, 'Everything is mind.' However, following what is said in A Course in Miracles lessons, when I look at this object, it means nothing. I interpret it as if it means nothing because I think and interpret everything. But then, removing that thought, the object should be real. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I assume another duality in which I am wrong and the objects exist if I don't think about it. So the question that arises is everything really a thought? Is there nothing real in what I see? Thank you, hugs." Okay, well, this is the comment that came through me, and it's, everything is a thought because you yourself are a thought. You are being thought, just like all the thoughts that arises. What happens is that the you being a thought is used as a reference point so that the other thoughts that arise in reality, which reality means in truth, adhere to that you. When you are sleeping and dreaming, in the dream you believe that you are perceiving other things. But that you is simply the reference point that the mind that is dreaming you uses to assume that it is in the dream, overlooking the fact that it is the one dreaming, not only the entire dream, but the you that believes itself to be in the dream. Remembering that the Course is not speaking to the quote-unquote individual reading the book, but to the mind that dreams the individual and the book itself, it says, "Your thoughts are in your mind just as you are in the mind that conceived you." When you are dreaming at night, you are in bed and that's it, okay? Then you tell me that you dreamt that you were talking to your sister or your mother or your family, or that you were watching a football game, or you were in Italy. You see, you do not exist in the dream, but psychologically you need to come up with a reference point, which is that you think it's in the dream. You see? So in the dream, you cannot see yourself. You don't actually exist in the dream. And yet, you are assuming that you are in the dream because that is the psychological reference point that you use to say, "I was in Italy, I was watching a football game, I was talking to my sister, to my family, etc." Well, the same thing is what's happening in here. Right now, this I that seems to be here talking to you is a thought in totality, you see? But totality, in order for it to see itself, but in the appearance as if there's something other, it needs a point of reference. So I am the point of reference that life is using, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, is using to believe that I am talking to you. You see? But that same consciousness, or that same life, or that same isness, it uses the reference point you to assume that you're talking or listening to me. You see? So it needs a reference point, but it's a psychological reference point. So it appears that I'm talking to you, And it appears that you may be listening to me, but you as well as me are just life itself, that it seems to take two seeming different simultaneous reference points, seeming centers. See? But there is no center because there's no me. All that there is what is. Now, you cannot get this with the mind, because the mind is the center, is the reference point that is already used to assume that you are this seeming character. In other words, without the thought, without the mind, without the conceptual thinking, whatever the thoughts, without that, you could not be. You can only say that you exist, that you are you, because there's a thought that suggests that you are you. When a baby is born, the baby is not identified with any conceptual mind because it has not developed that capacity. So the baby is not separate from what it sees. The baby is the experience of seeing itself. See? Until the conceptual mind comes up, and now the baby begins to perceive itself, because it believes the thought, I am this. Even though there's a cluster of feelings and sensation, the baby uses them to say, this is what I am. And now, because it perceives itself, it believes the thought, this is what I am. Well, obviously the baby now thinks that he or she is seeing something, overlooking that the baby is not seeing. Seeing is what happens, and the sense of identity of a me is what gives the illusion that I am seeing. But without that sense of identity, without that thought, what is left is pure seeing. So the baby is not separate from anything until the thought, I am this thing, because it takes the feelings, the sensations and everything. It takes all of that and it assumes that these are some things that are happening to him, you see, or to her, overlooking the fact that simply is. And that is because the capacity of differentiate and to separate and to fragment, that's what the mind does. But when you let go of all the thoughts, what is left is just direct experience, which is not personal, but I don't know what words to use, you see. So we're pointing to that which is. And when that is seen through, life continues on. I mean, life is still being, but somehow it's not taken as personal, even when it appears that there's a you doing and seeing and hearing and sensing and feeling. So the mind is that psychological center point that all that there is uses to reference and says, this is what I am, and everything else is other. But without that reference point, then it cannot be a me and other. All that there is me, you see. But not me as a thing, just me. I am. That's what it says. I am, you see. So the I am is what it's pointing to, and the I am is what you are always. That never is not. The only thing that overshadows that I am, which is the sense of being, which is the experience of existence itself, is a thought. Beginning with the thought, I am this thing, because the feelings, sensations, and whatever is perceived, I think that they has to do with me, you see, and I use all of that to holding on to the sense of identity. And because of that, see, now the distraction, you see, because that's all there is, a distraction seemed to appear, and now I relate to seeming others, overshadowing or overlooking the fact that I'm always relating to myself. And again, the mind cannot trap this, because the mind is that center psychological point of reference that is being used. Now, when you let the mind out of the way, when that is out of the way, when there's no identification with thoughts, then you simply are. And yes, while there seems to be that there's a you appearing in the world, yeah, the mind, which is a thought, is used, of course, is used for functionality, but it's no longer a distraction. So for example, I know that I am, You know that you are because is existence what is. And yet in the existence, which is what is, I perceive myself, or there's a perception of a me that is supposed to, that has a body, that is talking to seeming a camera and is relating a message. So I function just like everybody else. Everybody functions just the same. The difference is that when it's seen through, then all the other concepts that the mind try to use that could add fear, concern, worry, all this stuff seems to wither away, because now you see that life is happening. I don't know what is the next word that I'm going to say. I don't know what is the next feeling that is going to be sensed, or I don't know what is the next experience that is going to take place. All I know is that life is happening, and it's unfolding, and I am. And again, we're pointing to that, but this is not, we cannot talk about this. I'm not interested in talking or debating about this. I'm pointing to the obvious. That's what I always say right now. Even though you've been listening to me and you think that there's a you listening to me and all that stuff, and you think that you are that person or whatever, it doesn't matter. Right now I'm going to ask you the question that I always ask. If you don't identify with any thoughts, you see, especially the thought I individual, it doesn't matter, because see, that's the one that gives you the seeming center. If you don't identify with any thought, nothing at all, what is left? What is left has no center. What is left simply is. That's where this is pointing to, and that is experience. This is not theory. This is direct experience right now. But it's not your experience. You see? It's not that you're saying, okay, now I see, I sense, I can understand. No, because that's still the mind. I'm just pointing to what has been always. Right now, breathing is happening, and you didn't even notice you were breathing, and you took it for granted. But now that I tell you that you notice that you have been breathing, observe that now the attention goes to a seeming I that is aware that is breathing. But before the attention was going there, breathing was happening without your consent. Well, life is happening, and that's what we're pointing to, and you are life until the thought I am a separate individual or a separate entity gets in the way. You see? That is what leads to all the other thoughts that could be concern, worry, fear, desires, and all that stuff. But the fact is that you are. And when you rest in that, you see, then life is, and you experience the peace that passes all understanding. That's how you live a happy life. Because it's not that you as life has the ability to be happy, it's that you are life, are or is happiness. Happiness is not pleasure, it's not laughing all the time, it's just being. In other words, that's why happiness and peace are synonymous. When I say happiness, I mean peace. You see? Space-like, whatever. Not a sensation that passes by, like peace, like, oh, I feel peaceful, but now I don't feel peaceful. No. Then that's not the peace we're talking about here. It's the fact that you are. Right now, you are resting in it because you are it. You see? All you need to remember is that if you don't identify with any thoughts, if you just see them as passing clouds, the thoughts cannot affect what you are. The sky is always the sky, even if it's covered by clouds. And the clouds are not distractions, they're just simply passing smoke. That's all there is to it. Sometimes the smoke stays for a little longer, and sometimes it's very light. But it doesn't matter, because the sky is sky. Well, you are. See, that's what I'm saying. You are. Not even you are that, because the mind begins to think in terms of concept. That, this, that. No. You are. You cannot not be. This is what these videos are pointing to. That's it. You are. And because you are, you see, then there's nothing else to say. That's the silence this is pointing to. There's really nothing to say. I am. That's it. And then life happens, and you see how life unfolds. Well, you are. You always are. Breathing is happening whether you're aware of it or not. When you're aware of it, it's because you brought the mind. When you're not aware of it, it's because that's what is. Well, when you're not aware of the thought, I am a person, you are. When you are aware of the thought that I'm a person, now you think that you are someone who's aware of the thought, or aware of the belief that I'm a person. but you are, and that is always, that never changes. And always the willingness to recognize that peace is the only thing that really matters. You see? And now see how life happens. And yes, desires will come up and actions will take place, and you'll find yourself doing things and not doing others, but that's fine, because none of them is covered by the judgment of fear or concern or the sense of individuality. Oh, that is just what happens. Life happens. Life unfolds. You see? While I was talking to you, the phone rang. That's just what happened. I'll put it here so you can see what happened. Left is pure seeing. Without the thought. Hola Ricardo, ¿cómo estás? You see, that was just something that happened. Means nothing. I did a video on judgment, which is the previous one, I believe, so make sure you check it out, because that is a great example. You see, that is just something that happened and it means absolutely nothing. But judgment, in the sense of what we're referring to here, condemnation, would have been like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, this person called me and I'm in the middle of making a video. See, all that is the judgment that has to do with the sense of identity. It says, I'm a person, these videos are important, I've been interrupted, this shouldn't have happened. See, these judgments are the ones that we're now seeing through. It had to happen. You know why? Because that's exactly how life orchestrated, because I'm not in charge of it. If I simply know that I am, then this is just part of the play. And in the play, it just so happens that I'm making videos. And in the play, it just so happens that someone calls me in the middle of making a video. And in the play, it just so happens that I'm telling you about it. You see, but it's just a play that means absolutely nothing. Don't identify with the content of the mind, and you simply are. Thoughts appear, sensations appear or seem to appear, hearing happens, seeing happens, but you remain as what is, and that is what these videos are all about, to become conscious of that. And then, well, what can I say? Life unfolds, but does not affect the space in which everything seems to appear and disappear. And you are that space. You simply are. End of story. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, this is an inspiration that came through this instrument. I don't take any authorship of this. This is just what happens. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.